Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Joe Palmer begins now.
The Tasman Highway has reopened tonight after a serious crash. The single vehicle incident was reported before 4 o'clock this afternoon. A blue wagon ending up in a ditch by the side of the highway near Buckland. Police say one person was transported to hospital by rescue helicopter, but the extent of their injuries is unknown. Tasmania's cheese industry warns it's under threat if Australia signs up to the demanding terms of a free trade agreement with Europe. The deal would restrict what we call our produce, so if it goes ahead, local feta, as we know it, would be banned.
It's a household cheese loved by many around the world, but if the European Union gets its way, the humble feta produced in Tasmania may have to get a new name.
We use it as a generic name to market a certain product, so how do you rename something like that that's such a household name?
The EU has prepared a list of more than 150 food and 200 spirit names it wants protected and banned from being used as part of a $100 billion free trade agreement with Australia.
You can't call it a salted curd, something like that. How are you going to market that? Who's going to buy that sort of thing? It'd be millions, tens of millions of dollars just as a marketing campaign to get people to understand it is the same product.
Tasmanian cheesemakers worry the local industry will crumble.
Bring it in from Europe, Australian feta just wouldn't be bought. They'd buy imported.
Producers also worry there'll be flow-on effects to other international export markets.
For the dairy industry as a whole, what it does is it restricts entry into particular Southeast Asia and new markets like the Americas.
We will have to work hard, negotiate hard with the EU to come up with a compromise that's acceptable to Australian producers whilst dealing with the European concerns.
The list of products, which also includes Gruyere, Gorgonzola and Scotch steak, are protected in the EU under the Geographical Indications Program.
Ultimately, we will only do a deal with the EU if it's in Australia's national interest to do so.
The government has launched a 3-month public consultation process to give farmers and producers a say on the proposed list. It hopes a deal will be reached sometime next year. Letitia Wallace, 7 Tasmania News.
2 people have appeared in the Launceston Magistrates Court charged with possession of a slave and trafficking in persons. It's alleged the pair deceived a woman about her entry into Australia, resulting in exploitation. The man and woman can't be identified for legal reasons. They're expected to enter a plea in November. Taswater has revealed the results of water testing in the Derwent after a weekend breakdown at its Macquarie Point plant saw around 6 million litres of sewage released. It says 5 samples indicated low levels of contamination, with the highest concentration off Macquarie Wharf. Taswater says in terms of swimming guidelines, the results would be considered good. Disability advocates are calling for bus stops across the state to be upgraded amid figures showing less than half are accessible. The state government says it's in the midst of upgrading the entire bus fleet, but concedes there are practical challenges with the stops.
The time has come to make public transport easier to catch. That's the message from disability advocates.
In my mind, the Tasmanian state government are actually discriminating against people living with disability, and I would go as far to say that they're also breaching the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People Living with Disability.
According to today's Infrastructure Australia report, only 37.5% of the state's bus stops are accessible to people with a disability, while targets for 2022 are unlikely to be met because significant financial investment is required. It's a different story with the Metro bus fleet on track to be compliant by 2021.
Indeed, the government has invested in 100 new buses that are accessible options for Tasmania.
But without better bus stops, campaigners say that won't make much difference.
We're not going to be able to get on a bus if you can't access the platform to get there.
It's also important to note with regards to accessibility of public transport, we have quite unique terrain in Tasmania, and also some locations have unique heritage requirements.
Meanwhile, advocates are also planning a rally over changes to subsidies for people requiring maxi taxis. Sean McComish, 7 Tasmania News.
The renewed push for the government to investigate a Tasmanian pill testing trial has been voted down in Parliament. The motion from independent MP Ruth Forrest was voted down 4 votes to 8, with Labor and the government voting against the idea.
I'm not saying, and no one is saying, that pill testing is the panacea, but what we are saying is that there's a need to investigate how we might conduct a trial to add to the evidence base and potentially save lives.
Tasmanian Labor has a position around harm minimisation for pill testing, and we are watching very carefully the developments interstate to ensure that there's an evidence-based approach.
The government had already ruled out its support for a trial. Tasmania's housing crisis is in the spotlight, with a parliamentary inquiry investigating the state's chronic lack of affordable housing. But as the Federal Treasurer visited the state, he was tight-lipped on whether Canberra will wipe our historical housing debt to help prop up the sector.
Last winter, the Hobart Showgrounds became a makeshift home for Tasmanians on the front line of homelessness. 1 year on, advocates say the housing crisis is only getting worse.
It just did not make any sense. We had working people, children, kids going to school. These were functional families, but just couldn't crack the rental market.
Stakeholders venting their frustrations in front of a housing affordability inquiry. Hearing demand is outstripping supply and not enough is being done.
We've got about 3,300 people on the public housing register. About 2,300 are priority candidates or people looking for housing, and about 1,000 young people under 25. All of them competing in a really tight market.
But on a visit to Launceston today, the Federal Treasurer refused to confirm if he's wiping Tasmania's $157 million housing debt, a long called for change which would go straight back into the housing budget.
We continue to have discussions. We'll continue to provide good support to Tasmania for this important issue.
That could certainly provide for quite a significant increase in social housing. On our numbers, that would probably, if you use the total, it would equate to around anything from about 80 to 100 homes per annum.
The government saying it remains in talks with its federal counterparts, advocating for the debt to be waived. Michelle Wisby, 7 Tasmania News.
More Tasmanian patients are set to be treated in their own homes with the expansion of a pilot project. The Community Rapid Response Nursing Program is coming to Hobart after a trial in Launceston. It sees nurses visit patients with complex and chronic illnesses, treating them at home to help ease pressure on hospitals.
These are patients that have highly complex issues or chronic illnesses which sees them present to the hospital on a regular basis.
It's about that patient experience for us and hoping that that the intervention we provide them is a positive one and they can stay at home and not have to go to the hospital.
Recruitment is underway to extend the trial in the northwest. Now let's take a look at the day's business and finance news with thanks to Bank of Us, Tasmania's customer-owned bank. The Australian share market has finished lower, led by losses in the healthcare and consumer discretionary sectors. The ASX 200 index fell 21.8 points. A short time ago, the Australian dollar was trading at 67.63 US cents and 60.42 euro cents.
To hockey, and Derwent is likely to wrap up the Women's Premier League minor premiership this weekend following a dominant season. And from there, the side will be eyeing off its first league title in more than 5 years. Stamping their claim with a 7-0 win over University last weekend, Derwent is primed to go all the way in 2019.
We have had some good results, but in the last 6 to 8 weeks we've really struggled with consistency, so it's nice to put a big win on the board.
A win over a struggling Canterbury outfit this weekend will see the ladder leaders shore up the minor premiership and set up a semi-final showdown with fierce rivals OHA, with the winner straight through to the decider.
Whenever we play them, it's always a great game, really competitive, physical game. So it's exciting for spectators, it's exciting for us. It's definitely something that challenges us, but we really look forward to it.
Spencer's also recently signed on to play for the Tassie Tigers side in the upcoming Hockey One competition, with a former hockey-roo bringing some much-needed experience into the squad.
Tasmania is a smaller state and we don't have as many hockey athletes as other states do. It will be a challenge, and we're looking to take a young group, which is exciting, but obviously the experience isn't there that some other states might have. But hopefully it'll set us up for the next 3 or 4 years.
Meantime, Cricket Tasmania has announced its latest addition to the team, with former Auckland Cricket high-performance manager Simon Inslee set to replace Olympic rower Drew Ginn in running the Tasmanian Tigers and Hobart Hurricanes high-performance programs. Still on cricket, and Hobart Hurricanes import Jofra Archer will start his Test career as England's great Ashes hope. The Aussie plans to wear down at the Barbados-born paceman at Lords, but Archer's warned coach Justin Langer he's got another thing coming.
He could be England's secret Ashes weapon, blinged up and ready for his Test call-up, Jofra Archer.
Really curious and interested to see how he goes. He's obviously got a great temperament, he's an incredible athlete. But Test cricket is very different than white ball cricket.
Fresh from bowling England to World Cup glory.
He's got to go to the keeper's end. He's got it!
24-year-old paceman says he's more ready than ever to play Test cricket.
I'm usually the one bowling the most overs anyway, so I think Justin Langer has another thing coming.
Langer admits the Aussies got lucky when Jimmy Anderson injured his leg in the opening session of the first Test, and they're not confident of retaining the Ashes just yet.
We didn't come here to win the first Test, we come to win the Ashes.
Expect changes for the Australians here too, with 6 fast bowlers in the squad and just 3 days between the second and third Tests. Mitchell Starc is expected to be recalled, possibly at the expense of Peter Siddle, and despite failing to fire at Edgbaston, David Warner's spot in the side is safe.
Yeah, I like when great players miss out.
In London, Hugh Whitfeld, 7 News.
Good evening. Mostly sunny across the state today, with Hobart and Burnie reaching a high of 17, 16 at Launceston and Devonport a top of 14. Other centres today, 15 across St Helens, Friendly Beaches and Grove, a high of 13 at both King Island and Strawn, and Lyweenie 10. On the close-up shows low-level cloud over the west, while the rest of the state is mostly cloud-free. Further out, areas of low cloud can be seen over Tasmania and the coasts of the mainland, while a cloud band associated with a cold front lies over southwest WA. Tomorrow, a trough extends into western Queensland, while a cold front sits over southwest WA. Northwesterly winds tomorrow 10 to 20 knots, swells up to 3 metres in the west and south and below 1 metre in the north. A strong wind warning is current for western coastal waters from southeast Cape to Stanley. Tomorrow's forecast now, a partly cloudy 15 at Hobart, Geeveston 14 and a high of 13 at Bothwell. In the north, showers developing with a high of 13 across Devonport and Cressy, Launceston 14. Showers are expected at Burnie and Strawn tomorrow, reaching a high of 13, morning showers at Curry. A partly cloudy day at St Helens and Swansea, Orford reaching a high of 15. Looking ahead to the 3-day forecast now, Thursday rain in the west extending across in the north in the morning. Friday showers about the northwest contracting to the west, far south and northeast in the afternoon, and Saturday fine apart from possible showers in the northwest. Capital cities looking sunny across Adelaide, Sydney and Darwin tomorrow. Perth expecting showers with a possible storm, and Melbourne a mostly cloudy 14. And on to current temperatures, Hobart 9, partly cloudy, and Launceston and Devonport both 9 and clear. And tonight's Aurora Energy tip, only put heaters on in the rooms that you are using. Sounds like good advice to me, Jo.
It certainly does. I'll make sure to tell my children that one. All right, thank you very much for that, Jackie. Before we leave you tonight, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have shared some never-before-seen photos of their trip to Botswana to mark World Elephant Day. Harry and Meghan visited the country in 2017, just months before announcing their engagement. The royal couple posted the images to raise awareness of the plight of elephants around the world. And that's all from the team for now. Thanks so much for your company. We'll see you a bit later with updates. Bye-bye.